fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
He goes to jail. He goes to jail. Lock him up.
Our impulses are being redirected. We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness. We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. These signals being sent through
shows it to him, comes right back, go one way and come back in the other and get in the air. His hometown, northwest of Belgrade. And tonight, their family, his family, is watching in the living room at home. And one of the great new technologies that we have here at ESPN is that we can look at you in your house through your TV. We can look at you in your house through your TV. We can look at you.
Hi, Steve here. I just had someone email me and say, Steve, have you seen all these storms and all of this unusual weather happening? And I said, yes, I have. And that I was actually doing another video because apparently there are still not enough people who understand what's going on. Then the second part of his question was, do you think these are the globalists doing this, or is this a judgment from God? First of all, it is not a judgment from God. Believe me. When God's wrath and judgment begins, it will be 1,000 times worse than what you see now. And that won't happen until the last 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation. But what we're seeing now can be just as devastating for those who've lost loved ones or seen their property destroyed in seconds. And yes, I do believe the globalists are largely responsible for what we're seeing. Remember, they have the money, and they get it all from you. I realize that for those with extreme cognitive dissonance, it seems unfathomable and so against every moral and honorable code to believe that either our own government or another one would create these extreme weather catastrophes that we're seeing right now. But they are. This has been the dream of the globalists for almost 60 years. President Kennedy talked about it in 1961.
We shall propose further cooperative efforts between all the nations in weather prediction and eventually in weather control. We shall propose, finally, a global systems of communication satellites linking the whole world in telegraph and telephone and radio and television. The day need not be far away when such a system will televise the proceedings of this body to every corner of the world.
When a president of the United States says it, maybe you should consider it to be fact. Lyndon Baines Johnson gave a speech to a graduating class, and he said,
"It lays the predicate and the foundation for the development of a weather satellite that will permit man to determine the world's cloud layer and ultimately to control the weather, and he who controls the weather will control the world. He who controls the weather will control the world. He who controls the weather will control the world."
He who controls the weather controls the world. Did you hear that? Maybe he's right. If it's impossible for you to wrap your head around the reality of this, then it only means you haven't researched it at all yourself. I understand that most people are too busy and too lazy to ever look into anything or challenge anything that mainstream media doesn't tell them. The government spends millions of dollars of your taxpayer money to lie to you and to continue to perpetuate the preposterous idea that they are using weather as a weapon. Your mind has been programmed and won't allow you to believe because you say, why would they do this to their own citizens? You're not thinking like they do. And they don't consider you their citizen. They consider you their slave. I put this in other videos, and if you haven't seen them, I recommend you watch these. Dane Wigington is probably the most intelligent and leading whistleblower of this unimaginable technology that's affecting countries all over the world. And it's safe to say that we are not the only country or government utilizing weather warfare technology weapons.
Question: how can anyone rationally claim that the total blotting out of our formerly blue skies is just commercial air traffic emitting condensation? What we are actually witnessing is exactly what is described as the specific goal of geoengineering solar radiation management proposals, but they are not proposals. They have long since been reality. This time-lapse video of a climate engineering jet aircraft aerosol spraying assault was just captured over Shasta County, California on March 14th, 2019. Such skies are what script-reading so-called weather forecasters now term as, quote, mostly cloudy. The total desperation of the global climate engineers has reached new heights with the creation of the theatrically named bomb cyclone, which in this case produced the theatrically named, quote, winter storm Ulmer. Ulmer is the latest in an ongoing succession of engineered and named weekly winter weather storms. Like many previous engineered winter weather events, much of the moisture that fed Ulmer was pumped straight out of the record-warm Gulf of Mexico, while being seeded with patented chemical ice nucleation elements. But Ulmer's circulation and winds were stronger. Global ionosphere heater facilities, like HAARP, are a factor. The Weather Channel stated this: Winter Storm Ulmer will move east Thursday, bringing what the National Weather Service calls, quote, a Great Plains cyclone of historic proportions. Networks of ground-based radio frequency microwave transmission facilities are also a core component of climate engineering operations. The manipulation of Winter Storm Ulmer is a case in point. These transmissions manipulate the electrically conductive geoengineering particulates that have been sprayed into the air masses. By manipulating the particulates, the air masses themselves are manipulated. Thus, Earth's natural weather and life support systems are no more. All is tainted by the climate engineering insanity. Geoengineering elements include highly toxic heavy metals, polymers, and surfactants. Every single particle the climate engineers spray into our skies settles down through the air column, contaminating every single breath we take, contaminating soils, waters, and indeed the entire web of life. Help us in this critical battle to sound the alarm. Share credible data from a credible source. Make your voice heard.
Maybe you haven't been affected by the storms yet. Maybe you haven't lost your home or somebody you love, but you're still being affected by the fallout of these geoengineered aerosol sprayings all over the world. There are plenty of things in this world to cause us to fear. But Jesus told us, don't fear man or these things, fear God. Don't fear those who kill the body, but are powerless to kill the soul. Rather, fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. It's recorded in the Gospel of Luke, too. My friends, I tell you, don't fear those who kill the body, but then have nothing more they can do. I will show you whom to fear. Fear him whom, after killing you, has authority to throw you into hell. Yes, I tell you, this is the one to fear. Do you realize that people die every day? And for many of those people, death was the furthest thing from their mind. And so was eternity. But there they are. And their decisions now has sealed eternity for them forever. The worst thing that could ever happen to anyone is not to die in this body, but to go into eternity without God's forgiveness and saving grace.
The clock that connects our collective futures continues to tick. At this late hour, even as converging catastrophes close in from countless directions, it's never too late to summon every ounce of courage we can muster and to make our collective voices heard in the critical mission of sounding the alarm, exposing the insanity, and turning the tide. Consider this timeless wisdom from William Faulkner. He said this: never be afraid to raise your voice for honesty and truth and compassion against injustice and lying and greed. If people all over the world would do this, it would change the earth. And consider this from James Baldwin: not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. With these timeless and inarguable nuggets of wisdom in mind, consider this new report title from a former cabinet member for President Ronald Reagan, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts. Here is his very on-target report title, quote, "The Assange Manning cases discredit humanity. From his report, everyone who is aware of the U.S. government's extraordinary criminal actions at home and abroad bears a heavy weight. The millions of people murdered, maimed, orphaned, widowed, and displaced by gratuitous American military aggression comprise a holocaust of deaths based entirely on lies and false accusations in order to advance secret American and Israeli agendas. I suspect that the heavy burden of responsibility for mass murder and destruction committed in our name is the reason most Americans prefer the fake news fed to them about how good and wonderful and exceptional we are and how hard our government works to protect us. The storyline converts the illegal, brutal war crimes of the U.S. government against women, children, defenseless citizens, schools, wedding parties, funerals, and farmers in their fields into glorious, brave defenses of our liberty and virtue. If you want the truth, watch the video leaked by Manning of the U.S. troops enjoying themselves while from the air they machine gun reporters and innocent civilians walking along the street. And in the same video released by Assange and Manning, the follow-up machine gunning of a father and his 2 young children who stopped to help the wounded, bleeding individuals on the street that were just machine gunned by the U.S. military. The leak of the video that showed the true picture of Washington's wars is the reason Manning was tortured and imprisoned. The fate of Assange was similar. In the end, it is those who told the truth, not the criminals who committed the murders, who have been punished. That was only an excerpt from Dr. Roberts, again, a former cabinet member of the Reagan presidency. What else has the U.S. government crime syndicate just done to further silence not only Julian Assange, but honest, objective journalism as a whole? Consider this. Assange hit with Espionage Act violations as Department of Justice unveils 17 new charges. This is designed to silence any potentially objective journalist from telling the truth. And all of this just criticism of our government is not to condone other governments, all of whom are corrupt. But how can we point a finger at anyone when the pinnacle of corruption exists right here in the USA? When we look at this in a global context, which country, which military has been and is sowing the most death and destruction all over the globe? And if Americans yet again fall for another pack of lies to justify yet another war of aggression against Iran, just as the pack of lies was used against Iraq, Vietnam, and many other nations, then it seems we will deserve our fate. Americans must choose a different fate: to wake up, to face reality, to abandon ideology, preconception, and bias, and to face the cold, hard reality of what our government has done and is doing around the globe, and how directly and immediately that will affect all of our futures. Before moving on from the subject of silencing the truth tellers, there is this reminder of courageous truth teller John Carrico, the whistleblower on the completely illegal and immoral U.S. government torture program. Who was the only one to go to jail in that scenario? The whistleblower, John Carrico. Question: where in the U.S. population is there any sense of moral outrage? And on the subject of moral outrage, there are, thankfully, some that are rising to the occasion, that are sounding the alarm, that are refusing to yield to the murder, mayhem, and insanity. My deepest regard and respect to all those that have summoned the courage to face the gathering storm. Here is one recent example from multiple sources. This headline report, quote, Italian dock workers refuse to load Saudi arms ship over Yemen war, stating, quote, we won't be complicit. We should take an example from them, all of us. Italian unions have refused to load cargo onto a Saudi ship carrying weapons in protest against Saudi Arabia's war on Yemen. And for the record, this question: who has supplied the Saudi regime with the weapons they are using to ruthlessly slaughter Yemeni civilians, women, and children? Answer: America. The brutal dictatorship in Saudi Arabia that routinely beheads political dissenters and has hung their headless bodies from cranes for public display are completely supported by all occupants of the White House, past and present. Again, I ask, where is the sense of moral outrage in this country? And all the while, this same government, our government, is conducting highly toxic climate engineering weather warfare operations over our heads day in and day out. Our government continues to protect criminal corporations like Monsanto, a company that continues to be allowed to propagate their poisonous brews on our food supply. Our government, a criminal cabal that is increasingly force vaccinating populations with scientifically proven harmful concoctions, a government that is forcing the lethal 5G frequency assault on populations and the entire web of life. 5G is ultimately a form of a weapons system. The US military uses 5G for a weapon of crowd control. Please don't believe me. Please investigate. Where does that leave us? What can we collectively do to turn the tide? The first and most important leap in the right direction is to summon the strength and courage to face reality head on. To all those that are doing their best to face the gathering storm head on and to sound the alarm and to turn the tide, my deepest gratitude to you. We march together in this all-important battle to expose the truth. 59% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So much for the booming economy, a massive lie. Second headline, Ford Motor Company to cut 10% of white-collar jobs as part of global restructuring. Another headline, global stocks slide as worries about Chinese tech companies mount. Another headline, trade hardball. China threatens to cut off U.S. supply of rare earth elements. Mainstream media at this point is nothing more than a propaganda tool for the power structure. But you can see firsthand the sort of agenda they are carrying out. Try to cover the tracks of the climate engineers. Try to confuse the public as to what they can see with their own eyes over their heads, the climate engineering insanity.
Exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Whether it's chemtrails, GMO foods, diseases, 5G, or even war, we all face the death of these bodies and our mortality. One day, our mortality will change into immortality, some to eternal life and some to eternal death. And it's our choice. The Apostle John said, "Those who have the Son have the life. Those who do not have the Son of God do not have the life." It's that simple. Believe it, and you have eternal life. Don't believe it, and you better fear him who can destroy your soul. If you want Jesus Christ to be the Lord of your life, no matter what happens to you in this world, I put a link below in the description box with a simple prayer that will help you to get started in knowing the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. No matter what man does to us or what happens to us or our family, we will have that eternal hope living in us until that day we step into eternity. Think about it. Hi, Steve here. You may have noticed that a lot of the videos can only be viewed on my Brighteon video channel. And the reason for that is simple. YouTube automatically demonetizes the videos that I upload most of the time. Not all of the time, but very much most of the time. This means that few ads will ever show on those videos except the ones they want to show on, which means they make money for the ads that they show. So basically, it's me making money for YouTube and Google. And why is that a problem for me? Because YouTube is the very platform that continues to censor and shut down many YouTube channels that give the truth and the facts about what's really going on, while at the very same time they allow other channels to continue to exist on their platform, which are immoral, lawless, and really ungodly. But those channels are allowed to stay without any interruption. So for that reason, every video that I am almost 100% sure they will automatically demonetize, I will post instead to my Brighteon channel. All it means is that you'll have to click on it from the link in the description box. One click. No big deal. Some people might think, well, why don't you just get off YouTube altogether? Simple. I've already done several hundred videos that are uploaded to YouTube, and many of those videos are reaching people that don't know about the Brighteon channel yet. But from this point forward, I'm going to post all the videos to the Brighteon channel unless I'm pretty confident YouTube won't slap me on that particular video. No one likes to get slapped. I just want to say again, I appreciate all of you who support and pray for me. We're in this battle together. It's the battle to defend and fight for our rights that God has given us, and that's been spelled out in the Constitution of the United States. So many people have never taught the history of what it took to start this great nation, so they don't have any understanding of what it might take to keep it. And the globalists and Luciferians don't want people to know. I do, and as long as I'm able, I will be a voice among those who speak the truth. Thank you so much.